Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of genre fusion, looking at songs that mix multiple genre styles into one. Today we're going to be diving into some black midi, which I don't have a lot of experience with, but I do have some. And genre fusion, that's how I would explain it, but also not. I think it mostly depends on the song. So let's dive into this, see what Black Midis bring into the table today with the song Welcome to Hell. Nice beat here.
Listen, the sweet peals of moonlight induce love making on the streets tonight. Listen,
okay.
The soft purr of motorbikes ready to strike up the night light. So don't tell me of your troubles, your emotional grief. Taking the sights, this
That's
is
a very
surely
cardiac progression, but the previous one didn't go anywhere.
Unscrew your frown, enjoy the entertainment.
It just sort of existed in rising pitch.
Experience the red rooms, the green tables, the souvenirs, make memories haunting of fables. The gallant mist of
that was a fun little ornamental idea.
In basic training. By standing in line today, you secure a place among the saints.
Okay, this is interesting. It's a little mix of prog rock, indie rock, and funk.
To kill for your country is what wins a war. Don't tell your name, don't ask for hers. In this land of oysters, you are the worth. The painless plainness of military life resumes tomorrow night.
Ooh.
If not for you, it would have been cholera, malaria, or some eastern disease. Forget about it, son. A slap is all you need. Seen it all, and worse, much worse, son. The massacres of ages, too many to recall. Limbs rendered birds by the speed they flew off. A soup nothingness that once was your best friend. Motherless children.
Ooh, what is that? Atonal piano part.
The useless, the dead, the untamable.
That trumpet line, oh my, yes.
Shivering fuck, don't stay in the street, lucky I don't shoot on the spot. Our bullets were made for men like you, the impotent idiots God forgot. And tonight you decide which corner takes residence.
Thrash metal riff with a cardiac punctuating idea?
We don't need men like you.
Really? That's where we went musically?
But now you're on your own. We don't need men like
All right. What's going on here? The vocals sound like Ash Inspire. The music primarily sounds like a funky Cardiacs, funk rock, Pronk, I don't even know. What if Cardiacs and Primus collabed and then out of nowhere we hit these thrash metal ideas and this massive distorted guitar comes out of nowhere and we get this chugging rhythm. This is not the Black Midi I know, that's for sure. It certainly has their creativity, but sonically, this is very different than what I expected. And I'm gonna be completely honest here, y'all. I don't know how to interpret this. There is one topic, though, that I have some sort of grasp over, and we'll see where this takes us. It's the harmony. So frequently, I find the chord progressions in here to do the Cardiacs thing, which is to playfully move around outside of functional harmony to a way that almost sounds like chordal gibberish to me. This isn't something that is consistently used throughout. In fact, at the beginning of the song, it was a punctuating idea. Actually, in the middle of the song, it was a punctuating idea. But I found that about half the time there's chordal information in here, it's nonsense. It is a chord to fill the space of sonic space, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't say anything. The chord itself feels imbalanced. The progression of chords doesn't go anywhere. It's just a series of sounds. This is something that Cardiacs does really well, and I think even the specific chords that are being used here are borrowed from Cardiacs. In fact, well, I'm not going to say Cardiacs invented chords like this, but I think in my experience, that's one of the earliest places that I have heard these kinds of chords. And I'm kind of mad at myself because I remember reading about how Cardiacs crafts these specific passages, what types of chords they use in order to create this sort of chaotic, non-informative chord progressions to just sort of fill the space like this. And I can't, for the life of me, remember what types of chords are being used here in order to achieve that. But so much of this song feels like going nowhere. If you listen to the melody, it's directed. You listen to the vocals, there's momentum. They're going somewhere. The rhythm, it's going places. There's directionality to this. But when I listen to the chords, which is where the emotive element is going to come from, it's nonsense. And when I can make sense of the individual chords, the progression is, well, there's no direction to it. I'm not finding any narrative elements there. I'm not finding emotional elements. Like I mentioned, it's sort of gibberish. The harmonic theory that I know here, the functional theory that's used in a majority of music, isn't present here. They chucked all that out the window and said, let's just make some noise. And so most of this song just doesn't make any sense to me on a harmonic, atmospheric, or emotional level. There was certainly a rising intensity through the song, especially as we push into that more metallic part towards the end of the track. You can really feel a ramping up of the number of notes played per bar and general intensity, just the heaviness and weight of the sounds, all of the layers at the moment. I think the vocals at this point were also their gruffest, which adds intensity there. But a lot of this is sonic intensity. It's the ways that everything's produced. It's not the music itself, but the sounds that are playing the music. There's intensity in the production. I don't really get a lot of intensity in the composition. And I find that really interesting because the song does end up telling a sort of story, a directionality towards aggression, towards an overbearing weight, but it's not told through the traditional means. There are melodic ideas in here, but can any of you hum a melody back at me? The vocals are a sort of spoken word, quasi-rapped element. The pitch isn't really as important as the texture or the rhythmic cadence of the vocals. Most of the instrumentation is either playing chords, leaning into rhythms, which gives us a lot of our funky groove throughout this, or they're making sounds, noises, creating a cacophonous texture to the song, or just little ornamental ideas, a handful of notes at a time, not anything longer, no full sentences coming out of these instruments. Little short ideas instead. It ends up feeling incredibly chaotic and yet simple. I wouldn't say there's a lot of complexity to this track. Nice funky rhythms, sounds and noises on top of that, and some spoken word to go with it all. And yet it does find some moments to deviate. Big bombastic points. I don't know if you could call it a musical set piece, but it does feel like what everything builds to, such as that big blasting trumpet part and the whole band supporting it. What was originally this funky progressive punk stuff is now a very theatrical soundtrack element. We have this moment of majesty and power and strength. No melody, no rhythm, really. We're just focusing on this feeling, this vibe. Hyper-focused on this atmosphere. Then we get back into everything else. The noise, the rhythms, the groove. But for a moment, we pushed all that aside and said, what if we really capture a specific moment? Doesn't really have much to do with the rest of the song. Completely different melody, completely different harmonies, completely different rhythms, completely different vibes, instrumentation, production. It feels nothing like anything else. In fact, in a lot of ways, it shouldn't even fit. And yet it feels like a natural culmination for everything that we were doing up to this point. Part of that, I think, is general production. It's also the slow layering of instruments as we begin to introduce some soft ideas that will be transformed into the core components of this moment. But I also think that the stark shift is the purpose here. It isn't supposed to be too smoothly transitioned into. I don't know what this moment's supposed to mean, what it's supposed to represent. Like I mentioned, it feels very isolated in the song. Not just the fact that it's not quite as noisy or layered as some of the other sections, but also because there's nothing else like it in this track. I think that separation, that isolation is a key element of why it was included. But also the victorious element is weird too, because the song hasn't really been pointing towards anywhere. If anything, this song feels like spinning your tires, about wasting a lot of energy doing nothing. To have a moment of victory, of triumph, feels weird in a song that kind of captures an element of futility, of general waste. A lot of energy put towards gaining no ground. And yet I'm supposed to feel good about that in this moment. And I'll tell you, dude, whoever's playing trumpet here absolutely nailed it. The tone there was phenomenal. But what does it mean? I don't know. Like I mentioned, I don't have a strong grasp on this yet. It is eclectic. It tosses out traditional theory for, whatever they want to do. This is very punk, very counterculture. So that's the best I got on this. Let me hit some lyrics and see if that helps out any. All right, we have a rather heavy song here. The general description, as in this Genius annotation, mentions that this song is about a fictional private Tristan Bongo, a man who is at war and is suffering from PTSD. The story is told through the perspective of Bongo's commander. Now, much of this seems to be a dismissal of the PTSD in general. Verse 1 is a moment of shore leave, which is where people in the Navy are allowed to go on land and explore a town before having to go back in their boat or submarine or whatever. And here the commander is offering some advice on what Bongo should do in order to get his mind off of his trauma. He says, go. Basically, find prostitutes, find gambling dens, whatever. Go have a night on the town. He says, experience red rooms and green tables. Enjoy the entertainments of night town. Don't talk about true love, though. Don't tell anyone of your troubles or your emotional grief. Just take in the sights and have a good time. Verse 2 follows along with this, pretty much reiterates exactly what it said in a much shorter stanza, finishing up with the painless plainness of military life resumes tomorrow night. So go out and have a night on the town. Tomorrow we leave again. Now, verse 3 seems to be the commander getting a bit irate. Hypothetically, I'm going to assume Bongo might have asked about the men that he's killing. The commander replies, if not for you, it would have been cholera, malaria, or some Eastern disease. Basically, if you hadn't killed them, something would have anyways. And it probably would have been worse. Just trying to ease this man's mind, but of course it's not going to work. That's not how trauma works. Verse 4 looks at some of the horrors of war. It says, limbs rendered birds by the speed that they flew off in a soupy nothingness that once was your best friend. Motherless children and temptress widows, the wild, the useless, the dead, the untamable. Talking about things that happen and the repercussions of war. Verse 5 and the outro is our commander at his wit's end with Bongo. He says, you're lucky I don't shoot you on the spot. Our bullets were made for men like you, impotent idiots that God forgot. Finishing up and saying, we don't need men like you. You are hereby discharged. So his trauma wasn't taken seriously by his commander. And his commander sees him weak for having experienced PTSD by engaging with war. A rather heavy topic. And I think it's interesting that it's not done through the perspective of Bongo. We don't get to hear a firsthand experience of how the trauma affects them. We get someone else's perspective on it, and we have to fill in the blanks based on what this other person is saying. I think that's a really interesting way to go about it, and a rather fresh take on it. While I do find that being in the mind of a person typically gives us the most information we can. Having that firsthand experience of a first-person perspective of trauma, I think this is a really interesting way to take it, because I don't think most of us are going to understand how war can change somebody. We're always going to be on the outside of that. That's not to say that there aren't millions of people who can relate to that, but I'm going to assume that the majority of people do not see war. The majority of the 8 billion people alive do not see war firsthand. And now that I say that out loud, I think that might be a wrong assumption, because you can still be a civilian and see war. Okay, no, I'm going to walk this back, actually. I was going to say it's interesting because most of us would be on the outside of this, but maybe not. It is still, however, something I don't see too often in pop culture. Any sort of art that engages with PTSD and war trauma, a lot of the times it comes from that first person perspective. I think this adds an interesting take on it while still being incredibly artistic. It also allows it to be a little cheeky, throwing in some irony and sarcasm as they can make the commander say something that from him would probably be completely straight and factual, but is also something totally wrong, the incorrect way to handle a situation. And it allows us to see a little bit more about what the commander's response is, and we can use that as a stand-in for militaries and governments in general in the way that they treat anyone in war, anyone in the military, veterans. Some sort of disposable currency, pieces on a chessboard, if you will. And kind of getting that firsthand perspective in the song. Now, what this has to do with the music, I don't know. A sort of cyclicality thing, I think it kind of works. For the first half of the track, we are looking at lyrics of someone trying to fix someone else with ways that are obviously just not going to work. This could be the idea of spinning the tires, of making a lot of progress towards nothing, spending a lot of energy and not actually getting anywhere having spent it. You could easily, or Bongo, I suppose, could have easily went out on the town, had a night of fun, got drunk, forgot it all, but it's not going to fix the problems. It's just going to push it down. You're ignoring it, but they're still there. A lot of energy spent, not a lot of progress made. But the back half of the song still focuses on these types of ideas as well, and that seems to very clearly take us to a specific moment. It's no longer too much about Bongo in particular, and more about the ways that this commander views trauma and dismisses it as something fake and weak. I think the over-aggression at the end of the song, bringing in the metal style of playing, leans into that really well as the song becomes aggressive and the voice becomes more gruff. But we still have these sort of non-sequitur chordal movements that I'm not sure how to read yet. I think at the end of the day, though, I just want to wrap this up saying that this song is incredibly dense and unique. Again, ignoring music theory, which just means that I have to begin to understand what it's doing, not within the context of thousands of years of music and trends, but what it's doing by itself, which just means I need to engage with it more. But these are my thoughts on Black Midi's Welcome to Hell. What are yours? Did you enjoy this? Is there anything in here that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you want to give me your own perspective or opinion on this track? Do you have a take on the music or the lyrics or both? Put all of that and anything else you'd like to add into the comments below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.